that's where I hit the white. I remember her voice. Gentle, with an accent I couldn't place. She didn't speak much, just asked me a question that particularly froze me in place. She asked me if I had ever lost someone I loved, someone I had desperately wanted to save. Her words provoked a flood of memories, the worst of all memories. Some days I wish I hadn't been honest, hadn't nodded and told her about my own pain. Because she understood. She knew all about pain and loss. And she had a gift for me. Ooh, it looks like we are live. That is good. Yay. All right. Well. Making sure all my stuff is good here. We always give a bit of a second here. Hello everyone, my dear fays and fiends, and welcome to another solo tabletop game, part of our dark Spoop Fest, where we're playing more dark themed and natured games here on the channel. So while I am going over my stuff here, as always, if you're watching this live on Twitch or if you're watching it later on YouTube, for those live on Twitch, you can do a command code to get a link directly to the game. While those watching on Twitch, if you want to grab the link, it will be in the description down below. And of course, if you like any of what we play today or any of the stuff I ever do, feel free to drop a follow and subscribe on Twitch or subscribe on YouTube and like the video, leave a comment, you know, all that stuff. But yes, what are we playing tonight, you may ask yourself? Well, we are playing a little game called The Tears of Cassandra. And what I read was a excerpt. Words always fail me, but it was an excerpt from a journal of Michael Hannigan. What it says in this book, it's at the beginning of chapter 1, Getting Started, is where I read it. I feel like, am I center enough for everyone? Let us work on that. There we go. Admittedly, my throat is a little raw today, so it may get raspy, may get a little ASMR-y at some point, but we're gonna make it through, and it may add to the experience. So first and foremost, of course, we always say what the game is. So I already told you, it's The Tears of Cassandra. It is a solo journaling game centered around fantasy and horror. And it's sort of around themes of sort of foresight or seeing the future and not being able to stop that. So this is a very tragic story to play through. There is no happy ending for the character you play, as from the moment they realize or become a seer, a fortune teller of sorts, that is the moment they are marked for an end. This game is made by John McKinstry, or if you saw in the title sequence there, Jagmas, so you can give them a follow and find all of their other work. Lots of fun stuff. But we are playing this game today. Now, as always, we're going to just do a quick sort of look through the PDF so you can understand what we are jumping in through and going through before we get right into the roleplay here. So let's do this PDF flip through. There's a nice table of contents that's all clickable in this PDF. So we got the introduction, sort of explaining what the game is about, what journaling is if you never played a journaling game, what you need to play. So we can jump straight to there. So what you need to play this game is a deck of cards, which I have here. This is one of my bicycle decks. It is, I don't have a truly Greek-themed deck. I would have loved to have matched, like maybe an Apollo or Sun theme. I feel like I'm really low on the screen. There we go. Live adjustments. So I got this one. It's a little more Poseidon-y, truly. But it's the closest I could get. Very, very lovely. Very lovely. That's what we're playing today. So we need a deck of cards with the jokers removed, which I already did. I just have to shuffle. And yeah, of course, any way you wish to journal. For me, you are my journal. This live stream, this recording is my journal for my character. Now, it does talk a little bit about the system that is being used for this game, and the system is referred to as Fate Awaits. The system gets its name from the fact that from the time the first card and with the first story prompt is chosen, fate is waiting, counting down to the moment where the character meets their doom. So we sort of will be building up that sense of dread and helplessness as it comes up. And essentially our fate will play out in 2 acts, sort of like a play of sorts. Not a full 3 or 4 part play, but a 2-act play. There is no winning. The character will die. But the whole point of the game isn't to win, it's to create a great, if a bit dark story. So that is what we're doing here today. I got all my cards together that I'm shuffling in front of me here. Making sure there's nothing else I have to worry about. So I'll shuffle them all in before I select one to prompt. Now, following this section immediately is the trigger warnings, which is important for our safety. I already know what my own sort of lines and boundaries and veils will be. However, let's give it a read so you know what to expect from this game. So, to discuss, as a note as well, this is a game inspired by Greek mythology, which is why I brought up my lack of a Greek deck, and the tragedies that come from the kind of stories that are pulled and threaded into this. As such, in the mythology of the game, the seer character you'll be creating is ultimately doomed, and there's no happy ending, as we mentioned. This game is a blend of dark fantasy and horror. The themes covered in the game relate to the choices of the character who can see into the future, who can see another person's fate, must make. The game includes topics like loneliness, being shunned by others, depression, domestic abuse, suicide, murder, and madness. It also looks at both death and mourning and asks you to consider how grief can affect us. The game invites you to create stories around these themes. How dark you go is, of course, up to you, but the options are there among the story prompts provided to craft some genuinely disturbing tales. So with that, in case the ad that I saw for Twitch covered me up, there is a lot of darker themes centered around death, suicide, loneliness, mental health. So if any of those topics are unsettling for you and you cannot be here for our game, please look after your own mental health, as it can be hard to predict how I will interact with these prompts. But if you find you just can't continue watching, well, I thank you for stopping by and for trying to take a look. Of course, we will welcome you to the next session we have, but we thank you for the time you were able to spend with us. So, other than that, we're in a good place. So let me continue on through the little PDF here before we jump right in. Has a little section on a starting point to pull off of. Again, just a lot of, this is supposed to be a very dread-filled experience. And there's going to be unexpected magical things, immortal things, and we're dealing with a character of Greek mythology called Cassandra, the namesake of this game. And for her, well, let me get into sort of the legend here, as that is our next part 2 in the PDF, The Legend of Cassandra. This is where I've read the excerpt at the start here. So this section sort of goes into deep details. I'll skim it a little bit here, starting with just discussing who the Princess of Troy was, who Cassandra was, and how she loved her family and wanted to do what she could to save them. Eventually, she made a bargain with Apollo, who gave her the gift of foresight. However, such gifts don't come without consequence. So she was able to see all these terrible things coming for her various family members, but was incapable of stopping them or getting anyone to even listen to her. Upon all of her failings in order to save her family, she was just utterly broken, and tried to kill herself. However, Apollo, him being the very god that gifted her foresight, could see what was happening and did not relay that she also gained the gift of immortality. Because Greek gods in particular are atrociously mean to people who pray to them. They're very, very awful individuals. So she suffers now from that immortal life, having to see fates unfold in her visions and unable to stop any of the ones that come after her loved ones. It said that through her tears, as they wash over others, she can create other seers. As she first realized that a woman that she cried upon became noted with her tears, and just sort of happened. Now, the sun god Apollo took much glee in all of this, sort of taking delight in Cassandra's pain, but having another seer, one of Cassandra's sort of children, thereafter, they were able to do some things that Cassandra could not, though they could not have a longer sight on the future. They were able to at least stop some things from happening from people that Apollo himself has marked for end. So, in this game, he dredged up some hounds from the very pits of Hades and of the underworld, bringing a pack of hunting hounds who would seek out every child of Cassandra that ever came to existence. So every time a new seer becomes anointed into being, through her tears, whether on purpose or by mistake, these hounds would be enraged to hunt them down and take them. This is why all children of Cassandra, all seers that are made through her tears, will suffer the same terrible fate. That when they become seers, they instantly enter the mind of the hounds, and they become bloodthirsty and in a rage try and hunt down the seer that has come through. I'm still shuffling, by the way. So with that, a little backstory. If you wish to read more, get the game yourself. Read more into it. There's a lot more there. But that's just the very cliff notes that I can offer. Now, we get to beginning on our game, which is our character. That is the next section here. So I've already written out some things to answer some questions that come into this section. So for the sort of setting on our world, I decided I wanted to be 1980s in New Hampshire. seems just a good time period and area for, let me do my shuffle. There we go. For weird magics, mysticisms and stuff. You know, just that area of the Americas works really well for it. So we're in 1980s in the New Hampshire area. I'm imagining southern of the state, probably a little closer, like Boston only being a few hours away, not too far of a drive. But that is our setting and our character. Today I'll be playing a woman who is 28 years old. Her name is Marisha Scott. She has very long dark hair, kind of think Cher, like right down past her hip. Wears thick glasses of the time. Very muted clothing compared to other fashion trends of the period of the 80s. Kind of, you know, fitting that more East Coast dreary and fog-ridden area when it's not cold and snowing in the season. So very muted appearance, very plain freckles with some moles dotted on the side of her cheek and one on her chin, very like a little one. I already said dark hair. She's sort of average height, like 5'4", 5'5" for a woman. She's sort of not necessarily athletic, but she does look like she at least goes once in a while. But not necessarily lean either. Just again, average. Probably hides most of it under her clothes selection, as she wears a lot of covering pieces and very dark pieces. She has really dark, sort of green brown eyes, almost hazel. I mean, to see her, you think she'd be one of those like art students, which isn't far off from who she is. She is a kind of in her later, like ending years of study. She's been in university for some time and looks like it. She looks very, very tired and exhausted. Kind of just the shallow, you know, areas of her eyes and discoloration when she doesn't have even the basic layer foundation on. But to answer some questions here, because I was kind of filling in all of the descriptor questions. Does Marisha, my character, have any emotional hangups? She does. She has a ex-girlfriend, which they broke it off. They thought they would come out together, but her girlfriend kind of made the choice not to, and sort of left Cassandra out in the cold, sort of saying, no, we're just friends. Why would you say that? Which, not I think said Cassandra, Marisha, which really hurt. Because that was a big step. Feeling like she's in a place where she can stand on her own and not have to worry about any family backlash or anything like that. But her partner, I guess, felt differently, and Marisha never got the full answers of why she did it. She just assumed maybe she was afraid. So she's it's been hard. Whoa, there goes a card. I guess I'll be my prompt. So it's hard for Marisha. I keep on saying Cassandra. Here we go. So it's hard. I won't show you this card yet. So it's hard for Marisha to sort of get over having a more intimate relationship again. She hasn't told anyone else about it. This was fairly early on, so she's sort of shifted universities so the rumors wouldn't get to her. Luckily, being the 80s, no internet, no cell phones, no social media. Better times, honestly. And I mean that better times isn't social media because bleh. So she ended up switching universities to New Hampshire area. And has some friends, but isn't too close to anybody. She tries to sort of shut off. Are they superstitious is another question. I feel like Marisha is. I feel certain things definitely get to her, like spilling of salt. Sort of those classic ones of the Western world. She's very careful about going out on Friday the 13th, or any other sort of days or whatever that are centered around that. Probably the other one she doesn't take seriously is the Black Cat one. I like to apply that because animals can't be bad. So she doesn't consider having a cat cross her path anything awful. In fact, she welcomes it so that she can kneel down and pet the cat. Which we all should pet the cat, you know? How is a cat in your path bad? Are they religious or spiritual? I feel given her hurt from her past relationship, I don't think she's religious. I think she tried to reconcile it, but it just felt wrong. And it's not so much the religion as it was just the humans in it. But I do think she's spiritual. I think there is a agnostic essence in her where she wants to be connected to greater entities, that she wants to believe that some weird twistings of fate is just making things hard for her and creating these events that are challenging, but challenges that need to be overcome to, you know, be a stronger person. Coughing. I'm dying on coffee. You know, as a proper university student does, die on coffee. But yeah, I think she just feels she can't really get into religion in these past recent years, but still has that spiritualness to her. Does their outward appearance reflect accurately what they are like? Do they look calm and confident, but inside? Yeah, she chooses a lot of her fashion choices to kind of in the way of shutting everyone out as she has acted. Being that muted sort of into the background, into the shadows. She always gives off this presence of seeming like she's all together, but underneath it all, there's a lot of anger and fear. There's just a lot of anger and fear and just unsure of what her moves are in the world, and all she can really focus on is her studies and getting herself in a good place. That way she has a job and able to keep pushing forward in life. Now, how do we describe Marisha's moral compass? Are there lines that will not cross? Yeah, for sure. There is your standard legal ones, of course. But there are things that she knows, like from her past experiences, Marisha would never do it to anybody else. So what her ex-girlfriend did to her, she would never do to someone else. And probably why she hides that a lot. Because she's afraid to do it by mistake. Has the seer... Oh, hold on. I'll continue on the moral compass there. I feel like she, not necessarily black and white, but definitely has black and white with bits of gray depending on the situation. So I'll say that's essentially how her compass is. Now, has this Marisha already experienced loss? Was someone in their past that they wish they could have saved? I mean, she had the loss of a relationship, but though her ex-girlfriend is still alive. Given her age, she's probably experienced her grandparents passing. I feel like when she was really, really like, young, her parental, her paternal grandmother passed, that she has vague memories of. So we're talking before 5 years old, she passed. And then, of course, as she got older, things in the world happen, and yeah. So the only family she has, that she talks with on a semi-regular basis, like a phone call every couple weeks. She calls her dad every couple weeks, and she has a younger brother who recently started college, is doing trade in plumbing. He's doing some trade apprenticeships and such in plumbing and taking some college classes to help facilitate some things. Now, in Marisha's mind, does the end ever justify the means? No, I don't think so. I don't think she really takes into that. There may be moments where it could. Maybe moments where it could. But she likes to believe that, there is a way to, like, you can try and justify anything, but there are some things that just are as they are. And either they are wonderful or they are horrific. And especially the horrific ones should not be something that's justified. If there's a way to not have it happen, you should try. Our next sections here, there's some further questions kind of just to decide how your character moral compass is, how they will feel. But we'll pass those to Marisha's hometown. As we said, Marisha kind of left and is in another sort of college university town to finish off her schooling in New Hampshire. So very small, sort of scenic town. I'm not going to put a name out there because I'm not from New Hampshire. I'm just going to assume there's small scenic towns out there. Quiet, but there is a sense of community, even if she doesn't necessarily participate in the grander events of it. She does have some things going on campus, just to sort of keep an image up. So I'm being asked in here, as we flesh out the world, to name and give a brief description of up to 4 locations that the character will know well. All right, well, I guess I gotta do a little research here. So New Hampshire, let's see what's a university new, if there's a university there. Granted, I could just make it up, but just in case I have anybody, there is just the University of New Hampshire. In Durham. Okay. Well, let's make this up a little bit here because I don't want to specify too closely. But some major locations are university, which was one of the older kind of style of structures of brick and mortar and stone. Then she's familiar with a local coffee shop called, what shall it be called? Oh, the Foggy Latte. A cafe called the Foggy Latte. Makes really good London fogs. And it's a quaint little cafe. Doesn't get a lot of foot traffic, but she came across it and found it had really good coffees. The servers don't interact with you too much, which she personally likes. But they do have a good service of, giving you what you order. So we're going through all the service rhythms. We got university, we got a cafe. A third place, laundromat. She rents a really shitty, tiny basement, like one-room apartment. And she often has to go and take her clothes and bedding to a laundromat to get it cleaned up. No real name to the laundromat. It's just called Sam's Laundry. Sort of that dingy kind of, surface clean, but when you actually look, the machines are old. Majority of them don't work, so you have to get in at a good time, either super early in the morning or really late at night to try and hit a good time frame where the machines will be free. Usually works early in the morning. And then her fourth place, yeah, the town is small. It's a university town. It's sort of centered around their one major feature. But there is a community library. It's not as filled as the campus library. The campus has a lot more up-to-date materials, well-maintained sort of archives. The local library has a lot more like local histories, newspapers from the time it first came to be and started maintaining records of such things. And sometimes it gets some oddities in terms of the texts and tomes it has within its walls. But it does serve the community so that those who cannot go to the university's library can attend the public town one. They're just get in from the cold to read some books or other materials that they may be able to offer. All right. I just read an interesting line, but I am going to keep it to myself. If you want to know what I read, get the game. Next portion, the character's voice. You will hear it as my voice, but let's say when she is speaking, when Marisha is speaking, there is a certain amount of professionalism under it from all like the things having been a university student for so long and having to play into looking like the grown adult woman professional, being in the time of the 1980s. But there is always a sort of level of, I guess, something emotional underneath it. She tries her best to keep it down, but underneath that professionalism, there's always a little bit of an emotion just sitting there ready to roar out. When she's talking with those that she's closest with, it's fairly more calm, But when she's in professional settings or trying to persuade people, it's a more articulated professional voice. And now the next section, the people they love. Because part of the heartache of seeing the future is seeing the end of the people you love. So we gotta hurt our girl. 3 other characters. So, I think one character would be her younger brother. She's 28. He's going to be 23. And he visits her quite often. Their family isn't too far outside of New Hampshire. They're just in New York State. But he's 23, brother, younger, and his name is Daniel Scott. He has the same sort of dark hair as Marisha, but kind of, what's the best way to describe it? Not short, sort of medium length for like a body wave of the time that men would get. So think, Steve from Stranger Things, his beautiful head of hair. That's what Daniel has. And where Marisha may be a little more sullen, Daniel not so much. He looks like he exercises and participates in sports a little bit more. In fact, he got to college on a sports scholarship, and ended up turning into the trades. So he has square features that are more just enhanced from his workouts. That is Daniel. Another person Marisha really cares about is her friend that she has made. It is a girl, 26. Her name is... I'm trying to think of something fun here. Her name is... I'm thinking R. Rodna. Her name is Rodna. Rodna Alice. 26 years old. Attends the same university. They ended up in a study group together last semester and really hit it off. And Marisha kind of allowed herself to have a new friend in her life. So Rodna is sort of now that person that tries her best to bring Marisha out of her shell, to bring her to any of the, parties or at least like study groups, just anything to get Marisha to socialize. And she is very much on the trend of things. She follows the fashion magazines. She will go to the bigger cities and come back with like slew of stuff to play with. Often tries to get Marisha to try new articles of clothing and the like, but she doesn't bite. And then our third person, I think she got close to one of her professors. She is 57 years old, originally from Texas, and came up to New Hampshire 25 years ago. Her name is Eloise. Professor Eloise Carlton. Professor Carlton. Well, Marisha has been studying for the length of time that she's been in school. Of some sort of science, medical science probably. Had a bunch of nursing courses, then switched over into other other medical classes to change it up. She's feeling like she can't really do the nursing thing. In her eyes, needs better bedside manner, and she doesn't want to deal with that. So, but she has a lot of talks with Professor Carlton. Sort of just another soul that understands her frustrations and determining goals and feeling lost in the studies and academia of life. That's sort of the people that are in Marisha's life. So keeping these characters in mind. Now, there's a whole section here of meeting Cassandra, the anointment, getting the seeing power. So I'm going to skim this a little bit here. There's much more to read. So again, if you want to read for yourself, get the game. But how Marisha meets Cassandra for the first time and becomes anointed. Well, the first time she ever saw Cassandra, she saw a woman in the park sitting on a bench. Long, curling, inky black hair, sort of olive-toned skin, deep brown eyes, sort of reddened as though made upset recently. And she's in very old clothes. They almost seem just turn of century. So unsure if maybe she thrifted them, or if they were family heirlooms that are now just being kept together by whatever will that threads can provide. But she has a very pained look on her face that Marisha can see, and is sitting sort of her arms or in hands in front in her lap on the bench, fingers kind of pushing against each other as though she's trying to crack the joints. And Marisha approaches. She asks if the woman is okay. And for a moment, the woman sort of blinks at her before a gasp catches in her throat and another rapid blinking of tears in her eyes. It is dark, and Marisha's concerned, so she asks her, like, do you have a home you can go to? Do you... I know where the shelter is. Do you need a shelter to go to? I can show you where it is. And the woman sort of just shakes her head a little bit. She says, No, I am okay. Just, I see a lot of pain in you. As she gives Marisha a very attempting at a gentle smile, but there's just this layer of sadness to it, and Marisha feels that sort of confusion. It's like, wait, okay, well, if you say you're okay, you don't need like anything. The coffee shop's right there. I can give you cash for coffee or food, or I could go get it and bring it to you. The woman laughs at her words. Says, "No, I don't really enjoy the taste of coffee, and though I appreciate your kindness, it's not needed. It would be a waste on me." And she stands up, looks at Marisha, sighs as she whispers, "I am so sorry." And as she sort of catches a word in her throat, she wipes the tears from her face. And catches Marisha's hand. Again, another whisper. So sorry. And that is how Marisha gets her first vision with this encounter with Cassandra, as the sort of drops of tears touch her bare skin on her hand. She gets like a weird sensation. She's blinking at this woman and now like stepping away, pulling back her hand, and but only the woman Cassandra knows exactly what has been done, in that she feels like she had no choice, is trying to make a choice against any vision she gets. Never works out to her favor. If not making it worse, giving her even greater heartache. So we now have our power. We've made our seer. Seer is born. I'm jumping a little bit ahead here. There is a section that talks about the power of being a seer. You essentially have no control over it. It just happens. And you will see a lot of death and destruction and great tragedy. And then a little section talking about a example character. But yes, Marisha, after having been touched, the woman, she steps back, and that's when a first vision floods into her mind as she turns her head up into the darkness of the sky, and flashes of her brother and hearing him laugh turn to flashes of agony and screams. She catches her friend kind of dancing and swirling, and then in the background, as it flashes out, the local library just in embers and fire. It's overwhelming, and Marisha does not understand what is going on. And she tries to blink and shake her head, but of course it doesn't matter. It's in her head. And though the vision feels like it goes on and on, showing flashes of pain and destruction and what almost feels like pure calamity coming down upon her, it does end. And in what is real world moments, though felt hours to Marisha, she blinks in a final turn of a head, and she's still standing there in the park in the dark of night, and that crying woman is no longer with her. So, our Act 1 begins. I had earlier had a card jump out, so I'm going to reveal it now. It is the 9 of Clubs. There we go. There's the 9 of Clubs. Let me get a drink. What drink? Water. Let's drink water. Keep hydrated, folks. So, how to play. During this first act, you pick a card, and then you look for its entry on the prompt list, and interpret and determine what happens to the character in the shaping of our story. Journaling hints. There's some prompts will be purposefully vague and can be used in different time locations and settings, so we'll be aware of that. And then in between prompts, we can feel free to, at any stage, consider what happens to the seer between the incidences in the next. And of course, just remember our well-being. Remember to note the suit. So I do have a piece of paper in front of me I've been making little notes on. So note the suit of the first card you draw. You drew clubs. When you have drawn another 9 of that suit, giving you 10 cards, your seer's reputation has grown to the point that their enemies are now aware of them. At that point, complete the entry for the 10th card in your journal and move on to Act 2. So, I will say, if we don't make it to 10 cards for this act, or if it's seeming like it's going to take a long time, I may shorten that number to 5 so that we can jump to Act 2. But we'll start here. So after that first vision, Marisha has been sort of in a fog, drifting about town, trying to maintain her studies. But it has left her kind of perturbed. She just thinks, it's probably just weird dream things. Maybe the woman had some kind of drug on her that just happened to pass through with skin contact, though that doesn't really work, and she has no scientific basis to try and run with that. She's been very confused about the interaction, but she tries to keep it at the back of her mind, or away from her mind. But then, about a week later, a vision comes. A dream. In it, she sees an individual. She can't make out if they're a man or a woman. Just sort of dark, shaggy hair. Lithe sort of figure, like very bony and elongated. And they are shackled to a rock with heavy chains. And as the dream focuses on this individual, the features start to come into place. Softer, face rounder, a woman. And her face, though, is filled with joy. And she sees this woman kind of apparate into the space beside this individual, shackled to the rock. And in her hand is a key, sort of a rusted key. And Marisha looks to the individual, trying to focus her eyes. And it's a man. And as the woman unlocks him, his hands immediately lunge to the woman's throat and bears down upon her. It was such a violent action. The woman still having joy plastered upon her, but the man killing her. And Marisha just in that moment knows that this is a murderer. And then she snaps awake. Cold sweat pouring down her face, just a wet spot on her bed where she had been lying. Sort of a cot situation. Her almost desolate living space. There isn't comforts here. She has the basics, kitchenette, the kettle, maybe a very small coffee pot that she boils on one of those hot pot stovetops. Kind of a lightly iridescent light bulb, or not iridescent, fluorescent light bulb for her bathroom that she leaves on to keep the bugs, roaches from coming in. Sort of softly flickers every now and then. But she immediately gets up, pulls back the covers so that they can dry out, and goes into a fit of cleaning, trying to get her mind off of the events. She just dreamed of. She goes on a longer walk than her typical to go to school. And she turns to look at a sign being put up in a window. And she kind of pauses and taking a look. And it gives her enough to peer through the window to a board, a community board on the inside. Sort of one of those bulletin sort of postings. And her eyes widen as she catches the face of the woman she dreamt of. Marisha immediately runs into this place, now finally realizing it's the cafe she usually visits to, the Foggy Latte, and kind of looks at the posting. It looks like it was one of the pages from a newspaper. So she quickly looks about, grabbing one of the papers off the table and flips through until she finds the additional story talking of this woman. Her name is Mary Tribble, lawyer. And in it, she sees that she is defending a man who is accused of multiple murders. But Mary is saying that he is innocent of these crimes. And in the listing, Marisha can see there's a little sort of mugshot of the man. It is also the man from her dreams. This is an instant where, being her first vision and not realizing what it is, as Cassandra sort of left her to figure it out on her own. Marisha doesn't act upon it. She sort of just almost obsessively pays attention to the news, to any reports on the radio or TV that she can catch. She only has a radio in her apartment, but will catch TV at the cafe, the laundromat, and like the student lounges at the university. I didn't get to say what the man was. So Mary Tribble is a lawyer. And the man she's defending, his name is Craig Michaels. See what happens there. Nine of Hearts. With some time passing and these visions keep happening, Marisha, between both the university and the local library when the university closes down for the night, begins researching hard on seers. Now, there's no medical scientific reports or studies, maybe the odd obscure one that could not measure anything like that. There's no measure of such an ability. But as she starts going through and exhausting medical researches, she starts drifting into the more spiritual and starts reading up in mythology where most of those instances of seer comes up. But every time she tries to get more information, very little value. But one that she always sees through all the stories, as she's getting to more myths and legends of the world, is that anyone who's a true seer will lapse into a trauma of madness from everything they've seen and all the horrors they've had to witness without truly witnessing them or being unable to stop them. And these seers, when they get to that point, shortly die because of them coming into their power. Of course, this doesn't sit well with Marisha. She keeps trying to research more and more, trying to find any stories or legends of any seer that was able to handle the powers, who was able to control whatever dreams they are bestowed. Yeah, she's been going through this research on one night. Her friend Rodna, she had been trying to catch Marisha the past couple weeks and has been noting sort of the new frantic nature of Marisha, and Rodna just, Marisha, what are you doing? I thought you were supposed to be, medical sciences, not literature and history here. What are you reading up on? And Cassandra, or keep calling her Cassandra, Marisha, very rapidly, as Rana's now like picking up different books and different papers, is trying to close everything up. It's like, Rana, I guess just a spark of inspiration. I'm thinking about, sort of a side project, a novel. It's just, fantasy stuff. Rana goes, oh, that's actually really cool. I didn't think you would have time. I feel like I don't have time at all for anything until the breaks happen. Okay, well, I've been trying to catch you for like most of the week, but you always seem to run off. There's going to be a party later at one of the kind of campus-based houses, one of the frats. Joshua gave me an invite. He said I could bring friends. Thought maybe he could use, a good party. He seemed very stressed. So I'll think about it, okay? And Marisha sort of nods, like, yeah, I'll think about it. It's been some pretty dense projects. Rana sort of nods, taps the table, and walks off. King of Diamonds. So as the time goes on, that sort of desolate basement apartment room that Marisha lives in is becoming strewn with copies of newspaper clippings of any, essentially tabloids, of the building story and case that Mary Triple is a part of, researching all of the things that Craig Michaels has been associated with, the kind of crimes. But she goes for a walk. And as she's walking about, she hears a screeching on the road and turns. And for a second, she thinks a car is coming at her, but no, it swerves off to the side and instead strikes a man that was on the crosswalk, just going across. And everything seems slow-mo in the moment. The car not stopping fast enough, just seeing the rubber skid across the pavement, leaving its black marks. The smoking of the engine, and from the points where the brakes are slammed down, just trying to stop the wheels, just sputtering out from the sides of the vehicle. You can catch the face of the man on the street, just that brief second of realization before abject horror as the car strikes him. And at first, he is sent flying in front of the car. Or no, not in front of the car. Rewind. No, he is struck and sent tumbling over the car. Marisha immediately darts over to help. And as she kneels down to roll the man over to check if he's still alive, she touches his head and for a snap moment sees the vision. She's there, here, still. But it is as though it's just minutes away, a moment of her closing his eyes gently. The last time. Marisha blinks and, trying to contain her breath, trying to slow down her own heartbeat, she holds this man, kind of steadying his head as his eyes blurred, blinking. There is blood coming from his ears and nose. The battering of his body just leaving him twisted as his body hitting the pavement just the wrong way. Marisha just sort of hush-toned as gently as possible, sort of talks him through it, saying, how things will be okay. Asking him if he believes in a god, and he nods. She, in comfort, says she does as well. She talks about how she had, how she has this family she adores and all this life to expect, and that everything will be okay. The car, she can hear the driver of the car, freaking out, kind of yelling like, I couldn't stop. I didn't see him crossing. He sort of just walked out there. Look, Marisha knows the truth. And she's there sort of holding the man as tears welled up in his eyes, and them sort of blanking, not looking at her, just sort of in the space of her. And as Marisha's there. She sort of tells him that life gives us great and terrible things and great and terrible gifts, and that she herself, there was never to control what happened, even if we knew it was going to happen. There are times where I swear I see a horrible future to come to pass, and I can't stop it. She's talking as, like, not really noticing a crowd starting to come up, people yelling to go call ambulances and such. And what Marisha doesn't realize is a student from her school was also on the street and had come over, sort of overhearing the conversation she's having with this man, the spiritual, in-depth conversation, the details of her visions as a seer. And the man does pass as he did pass in her vision, though mere moments before. She very gently closes his eyes and looks around. You see sort of the crowd forming, people like hushed tones, like whispering, others gasping, as Marisha kind of sits there holding the still hands of this man on the ground. Must have been maybe his early 50s. Salt and pepper hair. There's a ring on his left hand, a wedding ring. Must be. An old but well-kept tweed suit. And she holds him as the sounds of sirens eventually come to the scene. Now, since then, there was rumors of spreading of Marisha because of that one student that overheard her conversations, sort of, you know, telling horrible tales to a dying person. Which some people do give her sort of a side eye from them. Others think, what do you even mean? She's just this quiet person. Marisha doesn't really respond to it at all. She honestly feels in her past she's had a lot worse things talk about her. Even truth spread that made situations worse. All right. 5 of spades. About a couple weeks, Marisha has a vision of a woman, sort of a strawberry, blonde, maybe ginger hair, green eyes, freckled, and sort of recognizes her as one of the girls in town. Maybe one of the ones that work at the Foggy Latte. Someone that doesn't necessarily talk to her, but she does recognize her enough from being present at the cafe quite a bit. And she sees in this vision of her going on a journey that would destroy her. Marisha very quickly sees her as she sees her on the street, ready to get into a car, a bag packed. She rushes over, saying, you can't go yet. It's not the right time to go. And the girl is very perturbed by the sudden action. The man in the car keeps trying to coax her in. He's like, "Oh, it's okay. I'm going in the direction she wants to go." Excuse me. And maybe it is Marisha's desperate plea, or just the look of desperation. But the woman looks at the man. She's like, sorry, I need to talk to my friend. I'll get a bus. Sorry for wasting your time." She closes the door. The man gets a heavy scowl on his face as the car sort of spins and darts off down the street full force. And the woman, like, seeing his reaction, sort of blinks and looks at Marisha and tries to ask her, like, "What were you even talking about? Saw, wait, what are you going on about?" And Marisha just says, "I just know you were about to go on a hitchhiking trip," and tries to reach for any sort of threads, remembering Craig Michaels. And she's like, "Well, remember the stories of all those murders. That could happen to you. They've been targeting hitchhikers." And the woman sort of blinks, like, "Oh, I guess I should pay attention to the newspapers more. I didn't realize that." And she sort of ponders a little bit and walks off. But the next time that Marisha goes into the cafe, the woman immediately sits down across from her with a newspaper in hand. And in the article that she has turned front is a picture of that man in his car, sort of having crashed on the freeway. And it's saying that they found a woman that was picked up in the next town over and was gagged and tied up in the trunk of the car, sort of unconscious. And it was the accident that sort of revealed what was going on. Some injuries for both the kidnapper and her, unsure at this point if either one of them will come through. If the man does, immediate charges and arrest, but still no word on the woman. And the cafe worker, let's call her Lily. She is now desperately just nannering on to Marisha, now becoming the very thing she didn't want in a cafe, is a talkative worker. And she's just asking, like, what should I do? Should I take Go Bus Go on a trip? Should I stay in town? Starts asking her if the horoscopes in the newspaper are true, circling her Pisces sign. It's like, see, like, is this real? Should I be concerned about this? Like, is that telling me I should have a sandwich? Is that actually true? Like, and this goes on for a good few days. And Marisha is trying so hard to be polite and professional. But it gets to a point where the constant asks that Marisha explodes in a fury of anger, screaming that she doesn't have all the goddamn answers. She doesn't even know if there is a God to damn the answers. She can't even solve her own damn decisions and her own damn problems. So why are you even bothering with me? I did you a favor. I did the best I could, and that's all I can give you. I'm not an instant oracle that can answer your questions on demand. Get the hell away from me. And the woman Lily, she sort of blinks and takes a step back. And this explosion sort of happens as Marisha was just trying to get her coffee and leave. And the other co-workers sort of hear the conversation as tears start to sort of build up in Lily's eyes. And Marisha just takes a moment to realize what she's been saying and rushes off. A lot of people saw that outburst, but she just couldn't contain it anymore. And it sucks that now more and more rumors are building around this woman, this lunatic named Marisha, of these weird visions and seeing dead people and all of the things. She is afraid of having to move again. She's already done it. And now it's starting to feel like that moment was a lot easier than what she's dealing with now on her own. 7 of Hearts. Get it on my tables here. Okay. Reminding you all of, if not already by now, the content warnings from the beginning of this game. Themes of suicide, death, because of this prompt. One of many, as we've seen it from this point. So, 7 of Hearts. A couple weeks later, another vision comes. And Marisha sees a woman. She is standing above tall cliffs that overlook the ocean. Tears are full in her eyes. Though we don't know the actions that led her here, it just comes to Marisha intuitively. This woman has done something they feel is dreadful and cannot bear the burden of it anymore. Goes to take a step off the cliff. Marisha sits with this vision as she wakes up from this dream and goes about her day in a fog. Seems to just be the pattern now, every single time she gets a dream. It's hard to know when it is just a dream or if it is a vision. But the next day she wanders the town, more focused on just getting to where she needs to go. But there she sees, sort of at the university parking lot, the woman she saw in her dream. She's with a group of other adults, and are with some small children, excited. They must be like maybe a touring group, or maybe they're part of the child education program. There is childcare on campus. Maybe this woman is either another student or a professor. But she sees them and watches for a moment as the group gathers with bags and picnic baskets and boxes. And she sees they are heading towards the lake that the campus is situated beside. There is a beautiful park there. And though the day started with clear skies and sun, almost as though willed into existence, dark gray clouds lumber into the sky, harsher winds begin to pick up. Marisha looks towards the group, and she can see the woman soothing a young child. Immediately, Marisha fears what could happen and will not allow it. She has enough time to stop this. She can stop this. She immediately kind of walks forth towards the group, setting in her mind that she is a professor on campus. She is, or maybe a guard that's about to come on duty. Any official of some sort. She tries to construct this in her mind, a character to take on. She approaches the group as they sort of take her in kind of inquisitively, and she says, sorry, everybody, I see we're heading to the lake, but there are reports of harsh storms coming in, and as part of our security team and to make sure everyone's safety, I have to ask that you leave the park, the area by the lake, and please take your children to a safe area. The reports warn of thunderstorms and harsh winds and can create unsafe conditions outside, so please take shelter. And is sort of trying to direct them back to the buildings. Some of the women of the group are sort of like unsure, but Marisha tries hard to project through a more professional voice that this is like official notice. She is an authority, and they need to go inside. And Marisha points up to the sky, thinking, it's very visible. How can you not see it? How can you not interpret that as bad to be in beside a lake? And then she gestures to lakes, like the waves of the waters are already going high. We worry that they will start coming onto shore and swamping the area. So please take cover inside. And sort of through those desperate pleads, the women do pick up, and the one she saw in the vision with her small child picks them up and gives her kind of an odd look, as Marisha has a hard time not looking at her as she speaks. And probably more perturbed by Marisha than by her words, kind of goes off with the group and them having very concerning conversations concerning her. But as they get to like the entryway sort of covered area, there's a crack of lightning and burst of thunder as pouring rain starts to come down. And just as it happens, as though some weird fate needing to show this, there is just a wash up of a wave from the lake. And any of the materials that were left there, that maybe the adults figured they'd come back around when the weird lady leaves, gets all swept into the waters. And Marisha just sort of, as she's getting soaked, decides to hang back a ways, making sure the group doesn't return back to the waters. And eventually they just have an indoor picnic and leave as soon as the weather clears up in an hour or so. Great, our club. That is our second one? Yeah, it's our second one. So I may do this to 5. So our second club. I said 5. Okay. Some people can't be reached, and you encounter one of them. I think this was somebody Marisha meets at the laundromat. Both of them having quietly been going. Their days sort of starting to overlap often. It is a older woman, maybe late 40s, but she comes in often to do her duvet covers and her bedsheet covers, sort of casually mentioning that her machines at home are just too small to handle the load for bed sheets. But Marisha has a vision of this woman that she leaves the laundromat, and it's late at night. She goes onto the road, and in the vision, as though sitting in the seat beside her, Marisha sees a moose dart out, and then instant end. Marisha pleads with this woman to start doing her laundry in the morning. It is a quieter time. It's actually more peaceful than the dead of night. You don't have to worry about trying to drive through, in the dark, because the streets are just not well lit here. And it'll be better, even just the general safety, as nice of a town this is. You don't know. And as Marisha tries hard to articulate her words and giving the most persuasive language she can, the woman just smiles and nods. She's like, oh, don't worry about me. I've done this many a times before you even came to this town. It will be fine. And as much as Marisha tries to get the woman to leave a lot earlier, that she watches each night, and as she watches, it becomes the last time she sees this woman. She thought she could convince her. She could persuade her to not go driving at dark. And she hears on the radio an accident on the highway, a collision with a moose, a woman in her late 40s. Short, sort of blondish hair with salt and peppered hair. Purple dress, brown Mary Jane shoes. Marisha very much, if she wasn't closing herself off already, now tries as hard as she can, thinking if she just doesn't connect with anybody, then maybe the visions will stop appearing to her. But she's gotta, if they do happen, she's gotta try. She knows she could have saved this woman, her sort of late night routine laundry partner, and she couldn't. Was it just the wrong words? Was it how she was phrasing? Has she just been terrible at speaking this entire time? And she tries to work on it. She listens to the debate teams. She reads what books she can on top of her already dense workload that has been slipping bit by bit since her vision started. And how she can come to terms, how she can even get to a point of being successful in her words, it's hard to say. Our third one, 8 of clubs. Well, Marisha eventually needs to go for a checkup. You know, a physical, yearly thing to make sure everything is fine, even though everything is not fine on an emotional, mental level, and probably how she is living her life right now. It's been hard to think about food, but she eats. And honestly, many of her, Rodna, her brother, even her professors are telling her that maybe she needs to go see a doctor, that there must be something wrong. And if she goes, she can bring in, you know, a letter so that she can get some of her classes switched around and get a lighter workload. So she goes and meets this doctor. And this is someone that had been devastated by some recent tragedy in their work. They were one of the doctors that tried to resuscitate that woman from the laundromat, that tried to save her after the accident but could not. And he doesn't say in words of all the tragedy he's had to deal with here, between all the death, as one of those responders that has to deal with all of this, but Marisha gets the vision, seeing of all the people that would pass on if he is not here. He is a professional that this community needs desperately. Marisha has been working on speaking with people in a more, I guess, spiritual way, not as, you know, on the nose, or at least not in a manner of like she did with the man on the road that her classmate overheard. So sort of on her own, she begins prompting the doctor, telling him about her experiences lately, that she's seen a lot of tragedy and been listening to a lot of things, and she's, you know, was a friend of that woman. How it's been difficult, but when we stop trying, sometimes that can be a worse fate than trying at all. And in a way, she kind of mentally clocks the hypocrisy of her wanting to stop being a seer and stop trying to do anything about her visions, and yet here she is telling this doctor to go, when she herself doesn't have much faith in things anymore. And it could be because of that common ground that he does sit with her and speak to her. It's hard to tell if he's just talking with her as a doctor, assessing her current state, or if he is genuinely listening to her words. I think they do have a long conversation before he has to scoot her out the door, about tragedy and grief and how we conduct ourselves in life. I think this time she does succeed on at least keeping him in the profession a little longer. Maybe it may not last, but at least he's not about to retire this week. Maybe next month. Maybe a year or two. But for now, he's at least focused enough. And, Marisha brings up things about, the next appointment. How often should she come to him for this depression, anxiety he's said she has. So to her, she knows exactly those reasons, but fears to speak of them because of what can happen to a person, where she might be sent if, because it already sounds unreal. But she managed, through conversation, to convince him to stay. 9 of spades. So, in the tabloids, an individual has written a series of lurid stories of fake psychics. And in these stories, they focus on the people who claim to be able to see into the future to exploit the vulnerable. And while Marisha's sort of scoffing, but still noting this tabloid, and she's slipping through, and this maybe a student one, maybe of someone in the journalist program had written this tabloid, whether for fun or just to stir up some trouble. But as she's reading it, Marisha, she blinks and sees herself in the point of view of a person trying to hold back an abusive partner, someone that's just full of rage and lashing out at them. It's hard to describe it. It's violent. It's dreadful. She feels every ounce of emotion as she is in the point of view of this person. You don't hear anything. I've been going on for hours. My recording said stuff. Change. Properties. No, that's not it. Why didn't no one tell me? Hang on. No. Not it. That's not it. Testing. Can I be heard now? That's like nearly 2 hours if I can't be heard of streaming that is now only on recording. Cool. Oh, that is annoying. All right. This is why I need someone to be on stream with me to tell me, because I thought everything was okay. Because unfortunately the only other way I can do it, my laptop's dying, so I can't open the stream on my laptop, and my phone is my camera here. My recorded VOD to go on YouTube will have everything in the first hour and 45 minutes. So I guess check that out. Oh my goodness. Awful. I guess, because I was messing with settings the other day because I was having audio issues. It must have turned that off, but check the YouTube VOD. And if you are watching this on the YouTube VOD right now, I guess you picked the better one. All right. Back to our very dark, tragic story. Get our background music back in here. All right. What was I? Oh, yes. So we had a person experiencing someone's violent rage, attacking them and murdering them. And as Marisha wanders her campus, she sees that person and sort of tries to casually talk with them. A young man, maybe 26, 27, so close to her own age. She talks to him and she finds out that he is a fan of the tabloid writer, and sort of just writes you off. And it's hard to reconcile whether Marisha should say any more, because it can very much sound like she may have been a part of it. She just mourns the man, that whether he believes in the visions or believes in what the tabloid writer has written about fake psychics, she has seen a violent moment that could be a turning point in his life. She doesn't straight up say if it was murder or anything, trying to hold that back because she doesn't want to scare him. But he still very much kind of laughs her off, writes into the tabloid of, you know, this other student saying she saw his future. And then about a week later, in the town newspaper, it speaks of a young man who was murdered by his partner. And sort of in the way described was the way that Marisha saw in her vision. And the person who wrote the tabloid begins to sort of sleuth and track Marisha down, knowing that there's a lot of stories and rumors about her, and that the individual that was murdered told him what she had told them. So now he kind of comes up and starts talking to her about, you know, what it is to be a seer, what she sees, all that sort of stuff, which Marisha doesn't say anymore. She just says, you know, real seers, not a psychic, a seer, sees horrific things through their dreams all the time, sometimes even in the day, and it's not something you can just turn off or summon. It just happens. And keeps it very short because she already has all these things going on about her. Right. 6 of Spades. All right. So there's been a building of these stories and Marisha helping people when she is able to help them, but only when they're willing to accept it. But there is one point. All the emotion that's always been under that surface of professionalism of a tired medical student eventually fully overwhelms, as there's one person she tried desperately to help. It is her friend, Rodna. Marisha has a vision of Rodna being in an open top car, sort of, half out from the top, arms in the air before the car has to swerve and strikes a pole, and she is sent, practically cleaved through the car. And it is deeply upsetting, of course, especially now as this is a friend, someone she's so close to. And how can you not maintain your emotions and keep them in check to try and save your only friend? She desperately tries to talk to Rodna. Their conversation building in a full-on fight. And out of that rage, as Rodna just sort of blows Marisha off, just saying, maybe you should just leave school. We're hearing all the stories and shit about you. How can you maintain any friendship with you when you shut yourself from the world and say all these, batshit things? Marisha, recognizing who the car belongs to, knowing that it is of Rodna's, sort of takes a moment to grab the keys so that she can send the car down a hill on a non-busy street. There's no traffic, but sends it off down the hill so it goes into the lake. She will never be friends with Rodna again. But Rodna will be alive. The ends justify the means, right? Right. How many draws have I done here? 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So this game is supposed to be 10 draws of our first suit, which was this one, but I'm just going to do 10 draws total so we can get to the next act. So we're on our 10th. The 3 of Diamonds. Oh yeah, I guess since apparently on stream I was muted. Recording's fine, but on stream I was muted. Reminder, this game has very, very dark themes and gets very tragic and can be pretty horrific, so always watch your mental health. All right, back to game. 3 of Diamonds. Ooh. Let me take a hydration sip here. In the most recent vision, in her dream, Marisha is in this sort of empty black space. As she blinks, Cassandra herself, that woman she saw in the park, the dark black curly hair, the dark eyes, cheeks and eyelids are wet with tears, appears before her. And almost immediately, Marisha goes into screaming at her. Why did she have to change her life like this? Why did she have to give her visions like this? It is all her fault. And Cassandra just stands there stoically, taking all the blame. Essentially believing it too, that it is all true. Cassandra just lets it go, and as Marisha calms down, or just to the point where she, even though in a dream, she just can't scream anymore, she has no more words anymore, Cassandra imparts her story of how she prayed to the god Apollo to grant her gifts to save her family. But all he did was give her these visions, made her a seer, and all she could do is see the fates of her family, of her home, of everyone she cared about come, every vision become real. Her soul breaking, her heart shattering every single time, further and further, dropping her into madness. And when she tried to take it all, to make it stop, the sun god would not let it happen. Cassandra cannot save anyone but her children, as she calls the seers granted with her tears. Her children can do more than she can. Her children can save people when she can never. She sort of pleads with Marisha that though now her fate is sealed and she cannot make that change, she can change the fate of everyone else to the best of her ability. Marisha snaps awake, and a newfound strength enters her. But in the moments before she wakes up, she doesn't quite catch the remainder of what Cassandra has told her, of her doomed fate, of how she will be hunted. All Marisha can focus on now is needing to save as many people as she can and become even stronger. She's been skipping classes, basically flunking out of school, now void of friends, and taking on as much research as she possibly can. Trying to use her visions to save people as much as she can. But her death is looming now. She's been doing so much to offer herself to servitude, essentially, to save everyone as a seer, or quote unquote psychic, as the tabloids like to label her as. It does sort of sink into her mind that from the moment her first vision happened, her thread was cut short. That she has been saving maybe one too many people. Is there one too many? Maybe all it takes is one, but she's been saving enough people from their fates that has attracted the ire of Apollo and the thirst of blood from his hunting hounds, the ones that seek out every child of Cassandra, each individual blessed or cursed by her visions. These get to be shuffled back in. And now we are into our Act 2, which leads into the death of our character, of our Marisha Scott. So let's see how this goes for her. Just reading some of the details here. So again, it's still a prompt setup. We'll be drawing cards for prompts and deciding how the details of each prompt affect our character and the world she is in. She's definitely become a figure point of controversy. Some people believe in her visions, other people really do not. Card leapt out. That will be our first card, as it was last time. Give me a second. Yeah. So I'll reveal it in a moment. Yeah, we'll be talking through the prompts and the in-betweens, the coping, and all that. But now we get the extra layer of the hounds coming into play, of them wanting to track down. Now, do I want to describe sort of the journey of these hounds to get to Cassandra? No, I think I'll leave the actions of the hounds and Apollo veiled until it needs to be brought up through prompts. Let's go with that. So let me read here. So his pack is summoned, and the hounds will be on the scent of Marisha as they try to track her down and bring her to an end for her actions, for having become a seer and attempt to help everyone avoid their fates that even the god Apollo may throw upon them. So, in the official game writing, as it was for the first time, you would count the number of cards based on the same suit you draw. We're just going to count it to either the same suit, the first 5, or to the 10, as we did for the last one. So I got the Queen of Spades, so we'll be counting our spades. Okay, reading the extended stuff here. So we drew a card that begins our act. Okay, no, I won't. I'll just go with the card. Keep this modified play to help here. So, as the days go on and Marisha takes actions to kind of build herself as this person, she does lose her apartment because the homeowner doesn't want some weird delinquent woman living in their basement. So Marisha sort of ends up couch surfing between people who believe in her as a seer, who believe in what she's saying. But for the most part, the school is almost just a source of pain for her. So she can't really go to her university anymore now that she has sort of flunked out. But let's see what the Queen of Spades brings. There it is. So some innocuous thing, an image or a song perhaps, kind of makes Marisha think about everything she's witnessed. Maybe she's sort of sitting in the laundromat. The cafe now just not a comfortable place for her either anymore, but she sits in the laundromat doing her laundry. A song crackles on the radio and just a flood of emotion. She breaks down in the middle of that laundromat. She cries, sort of fits of laughing at the absurdity to full-blown wailing of despair. The overwhelmingness of it all. Someone tries to come over. Maybe it's the laundromat owner or attendant. Maybe it's another patron that happened to be there or come in. But as they try to comfort her, Marisha immediately backs away, shielding her face as they go and wipe for a tear. She can't let anyone touch her tears. She can't. What if she passes on the abilities like Cassandra did? No. She can't let that happen, no. Cassandra may be perfectly fine doing that to others, but Not Marisha, no. And this is the first instance as Marisha sort of slinks back, telling everyone to back off, that she's fine. She needs to cry it out. It's fine. That she realizes that she gets a fear about people touching her when she cries of her tears, and immediately tries to wipe it all away and contain herself. Though her eyes are wide with that raging emotion behind them, she sort of stone faces herself. And almost in that like a creepy doll way, jerks back up, taking a breath, polishing down her clothes, hands up in there again. I'm fine. Please just don't touch me. Let's get this deck another shuffle, because I didn't feel like I was done when that card flipped out. All right. Ooh. All right, count. So 10 of spades. Marisha's next vision is of a very desperate woman trying hard to make a pact with Apollo for a gift to allow her to protect her family, just as Cassandra once did. And just as it happened with Cassandra, the sun god cheats her. And as we've established, Marisha has been trying hard to fulfill all the things that Cassandra could not, trying to save as many people as she can. She sort of begins on the lookout for this woman. And one day she does catch her. She sees her. This woman smiling and sort of arm in arm with a very handsome man, unusually handsome, who cannot seem to stop smiling. And immediately Marisha kind of jogs after the pair and catches the woman by the wrist, and the woman sort of stops, tries to jerk back, very confused and startled and scared. But Marisha very quickly says, don't do the bargain. Don't do it. Which very much catches the woman off guard. And the man with that smiling face and handsome features instantly white, cold, darkened eyes. A mouth, though a still line, feels like it carries venom within the teeth underneath. The woman blinks at Marisha. It's like, I think I've heard of you. I've seen you in the tabloids. Wait. And sort of now putting pieces together, they both turn and look at the man as the woman backs up. And Marisha takes point and steps in front of her and just sort of side mouth says to her, "You don't need it. The gift is not worth it." The man with a burning, cold heat behind the eyes. Mouth, the lips sort of disappearing into a very subtle scowl. And as Marisha sort of tries her best to keep a stare on him, she feels her very skin as though blistering, and though there's no visualization of blisters on it, she just feels like there's blisters popping underneath it, just burning and searing through her body as Sun God stares her down. He walks away and turns a corner. The woman quickly speaks with Marisha, asking her if her powers are real, if it's true, why stop her if it can help? Marisha keeps space and holds her emotion as best she can, telling the woman that how she got to be a seer wasn't through a gift, but through curse, and that you only ever see horrors, and that you can attempt to save, but sometimes it turns out worse than you've ever intended to. Queen of Hearts. And I'm going to say, now interacting directly with the god, he's very aware where Marisha is like, a child of Cassandra. Hellhounds, I have found her. Well, maybe this won't be as long as we think it will be. So, Queen of Hearts. Some hydration as I look for the number. Please hydrate. What an incredibly unusual day that happens this day. I guess the word of this seer of Marisha is starting to spread beyond the confines of her little New Hampshire university town. And on this day, a royalty was visiting the university. And sort of curious whether through superstition or what, wanted to meet Marisha. And of course, for some it may be an ego boost, but for Marisha there's deep concern, but she's not about to insult royalty. So when they meet, she shakes their hand, but the moment she touches their skin, she gets the sudden and intense vision. It is them weeping alone before a series of graves. She blinks and tries to say that she just had a vision, and everyone sort of treats it like a spectacle. It's like, oh, she had a vision, that's so Marisha. Laughter. She tries to tell the royal that she saw them weeping over graves. They are dismissive. It's like, well, plenty of my family are in graves in the graveyard back home. And they very publicly put Marisha in her place, as she kind of went against the typical politeness for royalty. But later in the evening, as she sort of sits in a park, an attendant of the royal comes jogging up to her and begins asking questions, as sort of listing off from a folded up letterhead paper of the royal, stating that though publicly they had to shut her down, they are deeply, deeply superstitious, and they have a big trip with their whole family planned later in the month. Marisha is not vindictive or vengeful or any of that kind of spirit. She's given up a lot to be helping people. And hey, you know what? If she can help this royal family, maybe they'll give her money so she doesn't have to worry about finding housing anymore. So she describes what she saw in the vision of the kinds of things she typically sees, the patterns she sees that leads up to deaths of individuals. A lot of car accidents. So be wary of cars. Sort of saying that maybe that trip should be postponed, if not redirected. But how that happens further is on their end. All right. Oh, our third spade. We might hit the spades before we hit the card count. Because I'm counting the first card just to shorten your time. All right. Spade. Get to our spades. Take some hydration. 7. Screaming. Marisha wakes up screaming full murder. She had a dream. It was of a killer. You wouldn't think, why scream for a killer? But the fate they meet and the fashion they greet it was just beyond horrific. And Marisha holds her head, tears streaming down her face. She knows that she can't be the one to decide. Know that nobody, no matter what they've done, deserves such an end. What she saw. But it's hard to sit with. It's so hard. As the moment she sees this man again, apparently this New Hampshire town filled with serial killers. Maybe it is Craig Williams. Maybe he hasn't had his hands on Mary Tribble yet. Sort of trying to keep good on his parole. But Marisha sees him on the street. And she weighs the options in mind. She weighs her words. She can't decide. She knows this man should be stopped and justice should be handed to him appropriately, so that the families he's caused suffering and trauma to can maybe find peace. But at the same time, can she interfere with fate on this one? The image is already in her head. It's never, ever going to leave her. She just stands on the sidewalk as he walks away, eventually out of sight. Maybe this is the change of fate that had been needed to save Mary Tribble, but just how that end comes for him, Marisha cannot reconcile with. It will always be with her. The what if will always be with her. If she did try and stop him, save him from that fate, would he continue killing? Will she get a vision that shows her the consequences of that? Will it be worse? The what ifs hang heavy on her. private clubs. And she wanders town kind of a ghost of herself because of it. Now the torment just of these visions going more and more, almost as though Apollo changing the script that if you're going to use the visions to save these people from the fates that were decided by the gods, then why not make you have a vision every single night? Every dream, a vision of constant terror. Every waking daydream, a vision of horrific ends. If you wish to use the gifts, why not make it even worse for you? So every moment where Marisha loses focus for even a fraction of a second, her mind gets flooded with visions. The sacking of Troy and the brutality and atrocities that were carried out by the Trojans of the times, seeing ancient history of these soldiers emerging from the wooden horse, of opened gates to their comrades. Just repeating the events of this Trojan War again and again, as though overlapping her waking life. We're seeing the gates of a community as the gates of Troy. As she wanders in town, trying desperately to keep her mind occupied and focused so the visions will stop, comes across a group of young soldiers. Maybe they're on tour, maybe they're taking a break, but maybe they're at a nearby training camp. They're here, and they are to be deployed. And since meeting them, the dreams Marisha has at night is of these faces of these soldiers now superimposed over the Trojan warriors who sacked Troy. These young men, decent people from home, from this town, destined to carry out atrocities and return broken shells of themselves. Marisha, in panic and sweat and fits of just automatic going, tries to come up with a way to address the soldiers and stress of what a warrior does is act with honor. So, having been recently recruited, maybe there was a recruitment on university that she didn't realize was happening. But either way, Marisha tries to seek out each of these young men to stop them from signing up to go and be in the army, the navy, whatever it is they're trying to do. Marisha doesn't care what the details are. She only cares that these men are now in her visions of this long, ancient war. Tries desperately. And many of them who have heard of her take it seriously, as there are superstitions to be noted in wanting to save oneself from horrors, even when you're attending out of desperation of your own financial or living situation. But as she is trying to speak to these men, the recruiter begins to chew her out, telling her off for her attempts, that she has no business getting in the way of the choices of these people, that they're doing what is right for their country. He begins accusing her of making it likely that, or of making them out to be killers and murderers, and that they would be dishonored. He gets to a point in their sort of shouting back and forth. He just... bit of rage lets loose and socks her across the jaw. Which Marisha is not someone to get into a fight, so very easily sends her to the ground. And he just tells her that, you know, it might as well be her fault if they die because she put the thoughts into their heads. And even as he's screaming at her about it, the boys sort of stand, sort of shocked silence, as he pivots and screams at them to form a line and march on. And Marisha sort of just lies there on the pavement, face void of emotion, blinking to keep the tears from coming out. Her face, where the hit landed, turning bright red. No crying. No crying. She goes to sleep, and again, repeating these visions. It's hard to sleep anymore. It's as though there is never sleeping, always sleeping. Reality is just a mix of waking and unwaking, and it's hard to know what is real anymore. But she does find sleep one night, sleep enough to have a dream, and she sees Cassandra once more. She watches Cassandra arrive in this little New Hampshire town, walking through it, observing people as if weighing each of them up. And then she turns and focuses on someone. Marisha begins to focus on that person too. Take in every feature, ready to get in the way. The next day, Marisha walks through town looking frantically for this person, and does see them in the street. Casually walks up to them, striking a conversation, the person sort of perturbed and trying to maintain politeness, as Marisha sort of starts with chit-chat, but does jump into the legend of Cassandra. Take a sip of coffee. And this person, a gentleman, maybe early 30s, just a plain dress shirt and jeans, that he listens to her sort of not believing her at first, as she goes on about how Cassandra became a seer and all the atrocities she's seen, the tragedies she suffered, and how that ripples into today. And though at first he didn't believe, it almost seemed as though her words eventually got to him. In a few days, as Marisha sits in the park, she feels someone sits beside her and immediately jolts a little bit, worried about being touched. The man puts out a hand, not to touch her, but just as a way to say it's all right. I was hoping I would find you. I was approached by a woman, he says. A woman much like you described as Cassandra. And because of your story, I ran from her. And Marisha sits and nods and blinks, wondering, did she do the right thing? Did she save someone from being a seer like her? She hopes she did. Because they shouldn't have to experience repeatedly losing people in a dream and then in life again and again and again and again. And because of that thought process, that realization, Marisha begins to feel that sort of relatability to Cassandra and the burden that she had for all of her hundreds of years existing in this world. And though there was a lot of anger and upset towards Cassandra for passing on this gift, sort of begins to understand why. Three of diamonds. Oop. Did a thing. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Take a sip as we look for a card. All right. So life generally has been very lonely for Marisha. And she's sort of at a point of just waiting for those hounds to catch up to her, of waiting for it to end the way it should. She is drawn to a woman just a couple years older than she is, but is very intrigued. You know, the woman very intrigued by Marisha and sort of catches her in the park to talk, telling her she's heard the stories and is fascinated and honestly has the spiritual view on it all. She's so beautiful. Dark hair, dark skin, a beautiful smile that could just warm you up, and a genuine curiosity. And they find the pair, Marisha and this woman, have a lot in common. The sort of things they liked, or that Marisha used to like before becoming a seer. The studies of medical sciences and getting to long conversations on recent researches of how the brain works. And in time, Marisha senses that fate is rushing towards this woman, Alea. It should be easy. So easy. Stop it to change it. She has done so much worse to stop other people from meeting their end. But when she tries to open her mouth to speak, Leah, she feels it go dry and just can't get the words out. And though Aaliyah tries to keep Marisha engaged, trying to see what she's trying to say, none of the right words come out. It gets twisted. Maybe it's a cruel prank by the gods. Maybe it's her own subconscious getting in the way to stop her from getting close to somebody. But Aaliyah eventually gets a sour look on her face of disgust and walks away. It was only hours later that Marisha hears of an apartment that caught fire, and only one person did not make it out. The visions leading up to it just flash in her eyes. The burning of the walls, the curling wallpaper, the embers slewed through the wood, and the cries for help, the coughing against the smoke. Till eventually just a body on the floor. Nothing but smoke and flame coming and welding into the vision. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Draw 2 more cards. Queen of Diamonds. Take a sip during a search. Where Marisha had a thread of hope and a thread of passion as she found herself falling into the steps of a true seer. She's now in a state of just being a shell, and as she sits in the park every day, just a routine, sort of letting the visions flash over her eyes in the cruel ways that Apollo could thrust upon her. She gets interrupted by a young and inexperienced person. They seem so excited to come up to her, apologizing for interrupting her thought, hoping that they didn't interrupt an important vision. They're excited to ask her about what is truly important in life. Marisha blinks, trying not to let the tears come, but the flood of words just escape her mouth. The importance of spending time with those that you love. The importance of letting go of the things that hurt you. Of knowing you can't stop every hurt and harm that comes your way in the way of those you care about. Life absolutely sucks. There are horrors strewn all through it. You gotta hang on to those moments that bring you some peace, that bring you some joy, because those are the moments that help you keep fighting, keep moving forward. And those are the moments that will keep you fighting to get more of them, to work through the pains. And she goes on, and the person sort of sits and listens, where the initial excitement maybe is no longer gone. There's now just a sad contemplation and nod. Almost as though listening to someone who has gone through the terrors of the world. And maybe that is how Marisha is seen, as this wandering soul having to experience these terrors. Maybe we end a card early here. Marisha keeps getting these visions in between. Howling hounds, barking, growling, scraping at the ground, gurgles as though coming from the depths of the underworld. Visions flash of bright red eyes, searing heat, smell of sulfur. Soon. And Marisha sits at the park once again. Some people are unable to believe that someone close to them could ever. She sees her once old professor, Professor Louise Carlton. And she has a vision in her dreams of her getting murdered by her nephew who has come to visit. Marisha rushes to the university campus looking for her professor, and she catches her in the parking lot, and her nephew is there. He's sort of not too terribly older than Marisha herself, her own teacher, only 57. He's maybe late 30s, not much younger than his aunt, but he is very much verbally like yelling at her, saying insults and how she's, was supposed to give him a welcomed place and she's not doing her job and such things. Try not to be too obvious in a public space. Eventually, the fight does calm down a bit, and she sort of just nods to her nephew, and they seem to be, at least on the surface to those who didn't see the fight, just a loving aunt and nephew. But Marisha tries to wave down her professor, and she gives Marisha a concerned look before looking at her nephew and saying, "Oh, just a moment, one of my former students." And she gives Marisha a warm, if not slightly perturbed smile. And Marisha says, couldn't help overheard your conversation, trying to lead into what her vision is. And at this point, she hopes that everyone knows of her visions and hopes her former professor could believe her. I think it's because she believes her deep down that she couldn't take it in. She sort of watches her professor's face go blank and blink at her before she turns to her nephew and says, "They're going home," and gets into the car. Him kind of chest puffed, glaring at Marisha, unsure of what was being said, and gets into the car and they go off. It's not long later that a letter finds Marisha. And it's just shortly after the professor's death. The professor accuses her of being a liar and manipulator and to never come near them again. They've told their family all about her. That person has promised to protect them from people like you. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. Marisha doesn't know how to feel anymore. She just had to try, and at this point it was up to Professor Colton to decide. Maybe Apollo got in the way, maybe someone else did, who knows. She sees that nephew one more time. And sort of stares at him. Stares. And he catches sight of her eventually. And as they were seeing a ghost, his skin goes white, and he gets into his aunt's car, drives away. Well, I'm counting that as our final card to draw, so what happens then? As Marisha sits in the park, almost knowing, no, not almost, does know what is coming, she catches sight of Cassandra. Across the way from her, across from the bench. She sits down next to her. It's the first time she's seen Cassandra in any daylight. It was always nighttime. Even in her visions and her dreams, it was always nighttime. But this time the sun is on the precipice of twilight setting, with just enough light to color everything in that deep burgundy red of sunset. Cassandra sighs. There is silence between them. Between Marisha, Cassandra, the knowing, the anticipation. And yet, with Cassandra here, there is an odd comfort. All the emotions pass through Marisha. Sadness, the anger, having to carry all those horrific things in her mind and soul, all the attempts she failed at saving people, all the things she did that did save people. And as Marisha cries, the tears quietly streaming down her face, Cassandra wraps an arm around her. The side hug, head against head. Still no words. But the feeling is there. And at least Marisha see an end as Cassandra has to watch her go. And eventually Marisha asks, was I supposed to die that night? Cassandra doesn't answer. And yet in her silence is the answer. She doesn't feel Cassandra leave her. There she sits on the bench. And though the world is silent around her, in her mind, the howling grows. The sound of thunderous paws on the earth humming. Growls roaring. Feet soaring. Laughter of Apollo singing in the air. And that's our story. Very sad, dark story. Yay. Yeah, so let me read the designer notes here. As I take another sip for my poor, hurting throat. Yeah. As with many of these darker tales, there's events that can be hard to work through. I think I've had some pretty morbid stuff in the past as well. So I hope everyone is okay after listening to all of this. Make sure you give yourself a moment to breathe, to relax. No one was harmed in this play, just our characters. So take a breath, hydrate, give yourself a moment to stand and stretch. This is just a story meant to be tragic and exploring the depths of how to deal with those tragedies, with those horrors, balancing what to do that is morally correct versus what should be done. Dealing with the loss of going into a space of being seemingly the only person in the world that knows, almost in like an eldritch horror way, of having this magic bestowed and no one believing you. It can be a scary place. And that is the story of Marisha Scott. So for those who caught us on Twitch live, I'm doing the command code in chat. If you are interested in exploring a darker tale yourselves, maybe you like diving into the tragedies of the world, of putting your character through it. Link is in chat for getting a preview of the game of the Tears of Cassandra, or if you're listening here on YouTube, catch it in the description down below. Again, I did spoil many prompts through this game tonight, but there are many more. So as always, only do what you are ready to do. We could have changed up any of these prompts if it just did not sit right. But that is our story. So that was fun. That was a little different. I've done many card games before, but the approach was a little different. For this one being the 2-act structure, so that was pretty fun. Could have been a lot longer too, if I was following how the prompts were supposed to go or play out. You're supposed to draw, like if I drew the clubs, I had to draw a club 10 times through the play. Did not get there, but maybe you want to do that. This was just a modified play to fit within a time frame. We're hitting at 9. Almost 3 hours, I think. Let me look at my OBS here. Yeah, we're over 3 hours. So this was a much longer one, and I did not take a break. Bad me. I hope you did. And yes, so today, again, Tears of Cassandra, I was playing with my Icicle deck. I'm not sponsored in any way for these. This was I asked for game designers if they want one of their spooky, scarier games, more eerie games to be played on stream if they're a solo designer. And I was reached out for this one, so I was happy to showcase it. And yeah, I haven't used this deck yet either, so it was nice to be able to use the deck. Yeah, so I hope maybe not enjoyed, unless you like dark tales or sad tragedies. But I hope you, I keep wanting to say enjoy, but that's not the word, could take in and appreciate, I guess, the story that we told here tonight. I hope you yourselves have a good night. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you like listening to morbid stories. I'm very much an SPC listener, and those get very morbid. So make sure you take care of yourselves, hydrate, take medications, and lots of sleep. Whatever day, night, evening, whatever is in your time zone, just may it be a good one, and you look after yourselves, care for yourselves, because as much as it is a scary, eerie time to take in the horrors of entertainment and media, it's important to make sure you're okay. Stay healthy. And again, if you like what I do, drop a follow and subscribe on Twitch, or if you're watching this later as a VOD on YouTube, follow or subscribe and like the video. It helps me know that everything that I do here is enjoyed, because this is a lot of work. Getting, setting up the overlays, getting the right music, the materials used to play. I try and do it as best as I can on a budget, but it's still a lot of work, and to act solo on a screen like a one-man play is a lot of work. I was surprised my voice even made it this far, because I can feel it scratching hard. So yeah, make sure you come back for more when more happens. Again, if you follow my channels, you'll get the notifications. And I fixed my audio thing. My recording for YouTubes will be fine. I'm sorry, Twitch, for that first half. Probably, this is why we need a test listener. But yes, thank you so much. Again, have a good rest of whatever it is for you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.